But it's never going to get together ever again, apparently. Although I'm actually a little skeptical of that. Showbuzz Daily, where we get all of our ratings at, they recently called it quits. That's where they were posting daily ratings, and that's where we got all of our wrestling ratings. And they'd have all the breakdowns between 1849 and 25 to 50 and yada yada yada. And they were being inundated by wrestling trolls. I was one of them. Not really a troll. I would ask for the Impact ratings because I had a column that was due every Friday, and I was trying to get those numbers. But sometimes Impact wouldn't score high enough to be able to get measured, so I didn't get the ratings sometimes. But I would send messages to the guy that ran that site. So, but yeah, they're done. And honestly, I think I'm done with ratings talk altogether.
I feel the same way. I think it's time that we retire them, mainly because, and they talked about this, and I want to mention this because people saw the AEW rating today. Like, ratings this week have been really weird. Raw's ratings are phenomenal, best ratings they've had in 3 years. AEW's ratings were down this week, but they were number 3 for the night. And I posted, I posted in our Discord. I'm like, hey man, AEW is following the trend of linear television where WWE is bucking it. And they're literally the only ones that are bucking it. It is just WWE. Nothing else is. There are numbers that are getting like people like, oh my God, this Collision rating, number 5.
Yeah.
Number 5 for the night. Right. And that you can't even call these average ratings. These are above average ratings for what linear TV is. And Mitch Metcalf, the guy who runs Showbuzz, talked about how there's more streamers than there are cable users right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are more people stream their television. The reason why the P50 numbers are higher is because that's the people that watch cable TV, right? The people that are like, that's why like someone on our Discord is like, well, wrestling should have an advantage because it's new every week. I said, yeah, but that's the reason why it's not an advantage, because it's there every week.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It makes wrestling, there's no special. The reason why they load wrestling shows up is to make them special. Because when something is there every week, you take it for granted. Right? WWE had 20 years of consistent declines. This is the first year they've bucked that trend. It's just them. Give them credit. And I will go to my grave saying their presence on one of the bigger streamers is the reason why. Because they're big shows, which you don't need to watch Raw or SmackDown to follow, because they tell you everything before the matches. Smartly, by the way. I'm not criticizing them for that. They tell you the whole story so you're not left out of it. So you don't have to. But I think that's the reason why people are tuning into these things. There's a reason why Peacock's numbers have increased over the last 2 years dramatically. And it's coincided with WWE's rise. I mean, there's this direct through line. Like, the numbers that they get from these things is 40,000 Nielsen houses in the US right now. 40,000. That's the people who decide things. And the number one show last night on cable was a 0.25 in the 18 to 49 demo. AEW was a 0.24. They were number 3, almost a statistical tie for number 2. That's one house, man.
Yeah. And
we joke about impact ratings. We joke about the impact ratings going crazy because it's like 1 or 2 houses. Like,
it's so funny. The impact rating, when I would know it'd be down, when our friend Wade from North Dakota, he's a Nielsen house. He's like, oh, sorry, man, I didn't watch Impact last night. And then, like, magically, you would see a dramatic 30,000 person shift from Impact. There was one time where they were 125,000 one week, and then the very next week they were like 82,000, and that was because 2 people decided not to show up that week. It's wild.
It's really what it is. I mean, like, and there's guys that will keep fighting it and keep saying, well, this is the system. It has been the system, but there's networks. ABC came out and said, yeah, we're not going to pay attention to the Nielsen ratings anymore.
Yeah.
They said that 2 years ago. They put a press release out and saying, we're not going to make our business decisions based on this. Like, it's an antiquated system that doesn't really hold validity. The only thing that draws big, consistent ratings is live sports.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And here's my question to that. Because we talked about, I think I posted in our Discord today, it's like 2.3 million people this year in Q1 of 2023. So not even quarter 2 have abandoned cable. Right? So again, this is all best guess estimates. And when the numbers keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, it doesn't matter. Like, I want to say it's irrelevant because you can't call it irrelevant, but a lot of people are calling it irrelevant. And I posted something in our BFI chat that showed it was The Secret Invasion, the new Disney Plus Marvel show. Most disappointing premiere they've had for a Disney Plus show. And that's it. If you want to listen to my thoughts on that, listen to Superhero Speak. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. Yeah. But I mean, 900,000, 950,000. They said, oh, what a disappointment. 950,000 people viewed it.
And those are paid viewers, by the way.
Yes.
And they're disappointed with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 5 days, but that's the thing. Like, we talk about overnights. Mike, how often you are a wrestling fan, right?
Yes. Huge.
How often do you watch wrestling live when it happens?
Rare. Especially now because I'm in the Hawaii time zone, it makes it much more difficult. So, but it is on a rare occasion. Last night I watched AEW. I started watching it at about 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, which is 5 hours behind you. So that's 1 a.m. Central Time. This is about when I started to watch that.
So your view doesn't count.
Nope.
And that's the thing.
And especially because I used a link to watch it.
Me too. And that's the thing. I mean, like I watch on the app, like, well, they can chart your app. Like, well, can they really chart mine? Because I don't use, I'm also a little nefarious in how I watch these things. Like, the way media is consumed nowadays is just different, right? And it was fun in the days when NXT and WWE and the AEW were going head to head. But I mean, like, the numbers are so small now. Nothing last night, other than I think it was Fox News, got over 1 million viewers, according to the chart. Like, who knows what's watching what on different ways. And then +3 is something that we want to talk about, but it's something that the industry pays attention to. There's a reason why +3 and +7s are valued by advertisers. Like, the business is changing. And if the people who are doing the majority of the reporting, Nielsen's still going to do its thing, but if Showbuzz Daily says we're not going to do this anymore, then why are we as fans caring? Right? Why are we getting worked up over what Collision does? Because again, that's 2 people. That's 3 people that didn't watch the show that night. Like, the numbers are so minuscule, and then they shrink constantly. And I hear it's like, oh, they're gonna, I read somewhere they're gonna bottom out. I keep hearing they're gonna bottom out. Like, but things, I mean, we don't know that. No one knows what the standard rate of attrition is really gonna be because it keeps happening.
Well, and Nielsen and these other companies, they're trying to measure like stream counts.
But the streamers are untrustworthy. The streamers release the numbers, and they say, like, Disney released those 900,000 numbers. It could be 12,000 people. It's not. But I mean, like, there is no standard for what this is. Like, we're in a different world.
Well, and it's like, at this point, why would the streamers like contract somebody to get their accounts for them, right? Because they want to generate ad revenue and yada yada yada. But these are paid apps. Now there are, like, Peacock. If you're on the lower tier, if you're on the $4.99 tier, they do have ads on their shows, right? Mm-hmm. I happen to be on the $9.99 tier because I don't want to get ads on my shows. So I actually pay $9.99, so I don't get those things. So, but they are doing the counts themselves, and whenever they release those numbers, they can say whatever they want as long as the dollar figure amounts are correct, right? They can say, hey, we generated this much ad revenue and this much subscription revenue, and that's where we're at. The viewership revenue that they report, it could be accurate, it could be complete bullshit. You never know what to really trust. Nope. But they don't really have to give you the right number, and we know for a fact WWE and other folks for years have been putting out false numbers just to create this illusion that they're more popular than they really are, even though they're the most popular wrestling company in the world. It's just been a huge thing.
Always be more.
Yeah. So the thing with the ratings talk, it's the only reportable metric that the public has access to that is independently studied, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's really been one of the only ways that we can measure success, because the live gates and stuff like that are being held because these companies, for the most part, actually WWE for a long time, their revenue was public because they're a publicly traded company. But AEW's gate records, you gotta trust that Tony Khan is telling you the truth, and so that's what gets reported.
Good job.
Yeah, and well, WrestleTix counts seats, right? He doesn't know how many of those tickets were given away, right? And so you have to trust that Tony Khan is telling you the truth. I believe that he's very likely telling you the truth, but there's going to come a point in time where you might not be able to trust him anymore, because at the end of the day, he is a wrestling promoter, right?
And
and he might fall onto his worst instincts as a wrestling promoter because they might want to make the illusion again that they're much more popular than they really are, a la WWE in WrestleMania 3, right? So that's why the ratings discourse has been so popular online, and it's not a new phenomenon.
No.
I was reading the newspaper on Saturday mornings, and I would get all of the Raw and Nitro ratings, and I would listen to the Shadow Man on Friday night, and he would report the ratings every week that he would get from Dave Meltzer. So this is not a new thing, but it's just become a bit more toxic because you have these warring factions of people, AEW versus WWE, and AEW's numbers are down right now. And so people want to use that as like, hey, well, they suck because they're not at WWE's level, when it doesn't really matter, because in a ton of other metrics, they're doing very well. And they are not a failure because they're not as big as WWE. Success is relative to the size of the company. They're absolutely, and Joe Lanza talked about this on his show last week, they're absolutely a smashing, incredible, big time success. And that pisses people off. So they're constantly looking for ways that they're possibly failing. And that's why the discourse has gotten way out of control.
Well, the discourse, it's not just from the tribal fans, but it's also from the old fans. So we'll sit there and pull up numbers from the 90s, like wrestling was way more popular back then.
Yeah.
And there's this narrative that wrestling was beating the NFL. That never happened.
Never.
I don't know if that's something Vince Russo started. I hate to just like put a bullseye on somebody, but I mean, that never was a thing. Raw never beat Monday Night Football. That's not real. Like,
no, so you want to know what they did, JD? And I'll tell you why. Because they would combine the Raw number at its peak and the Nitro number at their peak, and say that those two numbers combined the combined number would beat Monday Night Football, when in actuality, a lot of those people were the same, because I was one of those people.
I was also one of those people.
Yeah. And I was watching on the West Coast, and Nitro was 100% live. So I would get home from school and I would watch at 5 p.m. Nitro. And then I would immediately go into Monday Night Raw at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever it was, because Raw on USA was always tape delayed. So on the West Coast feed. But a lot of folks, you specifically, and a lot of folks on the Eastern time zone and the Central time zone, they would be coming on at the same time, and they would just flip back and forth.
Yep.
Or they would tape, or they would have two TVs. They would tape one and they would watch the other one live, right?
My college dorm room, my roommate, he's listening, Joe, and I would have two TVs. We each brought a TV from home specifically so we could have the volume up on one and the volume down on the other when we were watching wrestling on Monday nights. Whatever segment was more interesting, we hit mute on the other one.
Yeah.
Like we did. We watched both at the same time. We would have a bunch of people in our dorm room watching it. Like, wrestling was very popular in the 90s, don't get me wrong. But now WWE is doing some of their best numbers ever. They're absolutely killing it everywhere. They are killing it. And AEW is breaking attendance records too. Like, the Forbidden Door show was number 2 show ever in Canada. That's unbelievable. And they have the number 2 show ever for gate revenue coming up in Wembley. Like, you can't tell me they're failing. They're just not as big as the other guy. Pepsi's never going to be as big as Coke. And that's okay. No. Like,
that doesn't mean you're not successful. Right?
But we have to. We're so driven by these Eric Bischoff guys, right? That they have to be one versus the other. One has to, the 80s mentalities where one corporation has to crush the other. Wrestling is way better. The founding of AEW is the best thing that ever happened to WWE.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best thing that could have happened to them, right? And quite frankly, having multiple wrestling companies in this country is great for what we do, right? We have multiple things to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Like, absolutely.
I can't see anybody thinking this is bad.
No. And we have multiple things to talk about, and I think we've talked too long. We're almost at 90 minutes. We're almost at 90 minutes.
Well, we did like 45 minutes on the dang Money in the Bank preview. I didn't see that coming.
I know. Well, I know, but I haven't talked to Scott in a long time, so I'm excited to have him. So,
great.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Head over to patreon.com/FightGameMedia to check out our latest installment of the Mike and JD Show Extra, where we did a deep dive into the Black Scorpion. And you can also check our previous episode out, where we did a deep dive on the history between Don Callis and Kenny By God Omega. And we did those shows as companion pieces to JD's Substack articles. He's got 2 out right now. He's got the Don Callis article, and he's got the Black Scorpion article. Sorry, I already lost my mind.
Actually, The Substack was not about Don Cat. The Substack was about Don Eagle, and it's from the book. It's from the book I'm going to be writing. It was about the Chicago. The first Substack was actually about the Chicago territory, and Don Eagle getting screwed out of the old WWA title by the Chicago Fred Kohler Chicago promoters. So there's differences there. But yeah, so sorry to correct you, Mike, but I don't want to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got a little confused because the original idea was to do companion pieces, but we
didn't do that.
We did one with we did one with your Fight Game Media article first,
Yeah.
and then this latest one we pointed towards your Substack, so we have it on your Substack, the Black Scorpion article. Yeah, absolutely. So everybody go and check that out. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe the YouTube and put comments in there because it really does help the algorithm. We'd like to get those subscription numbers up, and we want to crush everybody on Fight Game Media. I'm not saying don't watch the other ones. I'm saying watch ours, and watch ours a lot of times. Just keep ours on repeat. If you see Mike and JD, just play it and on all of your devices.
Yeah,
get all your friends to do that, and then just keep them rotating all the time.
Do it on your phone. Do it on your computer. If you have an Amazon Fire, pull up the YouTube app. If you have a Roku, pull it on there.
Yeah.
Keep watching Mike and JD. Click subscribe, like, comment, tell your friends. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Tell your friends about us. But hey, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. And until next week, mahalo.